Hun, how you doing today?
Fabulous. How are you?
Here, I'm going to have you pick this up every time you come to the table.
Okay.
Ready?
Well, my name's Stacy. I'll be taking care of you.
Hi, Stacy.
Nice to meet you. What can I get you to drink?
How's your Bloody Mary this morning?
Fantastic. They're a little spicy though. You don't mind spicy, right?
It's an R-rated show, I'm told.
Okay.
So let's bring it on.
Spice it up. All right.
I've already had my coffee this morning.
All right, good job, Stacy. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. This is so exciting for me. Hello, Mr. Pollard.
Howdy, howdy.
Stu, you are a big fan of the North End Cafe, as am I.
Yep.
So I'm very grateful to them for allowing us to come in and have our interview. I've already been up to do the Walk with Compassion for our homeless outreaches.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which was, you're aware of the fact that we've been having some pretty serious issues in Louisville.
Yeah, I heard they had to clear out one of the camps earlier this month. So, challenging issue, and obviously a big one out in Los Angeles, where I spend a lot of time as well. So
yeah, it's a problem everywhere, and it's become a serious problem for us. And as a matter of fact, I have a funny feeling that it's going to be movie worthy.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be. I'm going to put this on the inside just because I want to hear you a little bit better.
Okay.
It's. I think it's going to be movie worthy, and I think you're going to find that the people who are doing the work here are movie worthy.
Yeah.
Because our homeless outreaches are just unparalleled.
Well, that's good to know, and we can talk more about that off camera, I guess, in terms of developing new ideas.
We can do that in many locations. Anyway, I am so excited that you're here this morning because, first of all, I love your movies. I enjoy watching you do what you do, and 15, 20 years ago, it seems. It doesn't seem like it could be that long ago.
It doesn't. It doesn't feel like it should be that long, and I teach a lot too, and it feels like when you hang out with your students, you feel like you're almost one of them at times, and then you look at pictures of you and your students, and you realize that you're definitely the next generation, or they're the next generation. You're the last generation. So yeah.
You have done so much for the community, especially you've been very, very instrumental in bringing movie making back to Louisville, which it hadn't been for a very long time. We've had a great Kentucky Film Commission, but we really have never had the kind of business in Louisville that you have helped generate.
I appreciate that. I don't know to what degree I can personally take credit. I certainly had some great people around me in terms of all the films that we've been a part of here, in terms of the crews and the casts. Certainly the people that have invested in my films over the years, a lot of them have been from Kentucky, so I'm very grateful to them. And then a lot of the young people, that probably the best thing about doing it for as long as I have is when you have people who are either in their teens or early 20s, 20 years ago. Now they're old enough to be out having careers, and to watch them bring films back to Kentucky is extremely gratifying.
Absolutely.
So that's nice.
You know, one of the things that I think has been interesting in just watching what you've done, you're bringing up, so to speak, you're bringing up the younger generation. And one of the things that I've noticed is that you help people learn how to raise private equity, which is something I don't know if a lot of people realize how much it costs to make a movie, especially an indie prod movie, which you specialize in. But you're teaching people all the way from Los Angeles to every place else how to actually raise that money that's necessary, because it's got to come from somewhere.
It does, and it's filmmaking is an exceptionally collaborative medium, but as you mentioned, it's also very, very expensive.
Yes.
Even if you're making something on what would be considered a shoestring or micro budget, you're still talking about having to raise $10,000, $20,000.
Yes.
A lot of the films we've worked on that are still considered low budget are still in the either high 100 or low 7-figure budget ranges, which is an exceptional amount of money for just about everybody out there. And so you really have to start thinking like an entrepreneur, and a lot of people who might know how to make a film don't necessarily get trained to think that way. So especially when it comes to what you do with the thing once you finish it. And that's a challenging part of the equation, because it can take a really, really long time. after you finish the film to actually figure out how to monetize it.
Yes.
And monetizing it can take a really long time. And you have to communicate with the people that have financed you, not just from a fiduciary aspect in terms of the responsibility of the tax reporting obligations, but also just from a psychological standpoint. I think completing the circle of finishing the movie and giving them an opportunity to see it and all that kind of stuff.
Look where she's brought you to
Yes.
celebrate your
Yay.
excellence.
Yeah. I don't know if that's anything has anything to do with celebrate. This is the excellence that deserves to be
It
celebrated.
is really good.
So,
Yes.
So
What about Bloody
We should just
Marys?
cut to
What
about-
makes them so awesome?
Well, if you like tomatoes, I like the thickness of the drink. It's like a meal in itself. It's instead of just water. Yeah, it's a meal in it. It's breakfast for sure.
And we're celebrating the fact that we were just certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yay,
so this
that's
is
awesome.
this is the new
Congratulations.
this is the new official drink of Rust Creek.
Is
the
it?
Bloody
Or
Mary.
fit now? You
Yeah.
just made it the official drink.
In honor of the certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
In honor of
Nice.
North End, you will be the immediate official
Awesome.
drink. So
Thank
are we
you
going to
so
eat
much.
something?
We'll definitely order something. to
Have y'all
support
been
you.
here before?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so then you know he's good. There's some good stuff here. I was gonna say the corned beef hash, amazing. The French toast, best in the city in my opinion.
That's what I'm
I
going
want
to
to see if you guys.
Which one?
French toast.
French toast. Would you like a side of bacon or anything
Yeah,
with
just
that?
a little side of bacon would be
Sure.
great. Thank you. I'm
You're
a carnivore this morning. Hungry
Our
carnivore.
bacon is very good too.
It is good. How long have you been working here, Stacey?
It'll be a year and about a week.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Let's have a Bloody Mary to celebrate.
Yes. Well,
I'm going
maybe
to
when I
guess
get
that
off.
I'm going to guess that management frowns on the consumption of
yeah, when I get off.
anything other
maybe.
than a Virgin
Yes,
Mary.
yes.
So I'll do the huevos rancheros,
How would you like your eggs?
scrambled.
Scrambled? All right. Get that
Hey,
in for
this is
y'all.
perfect. Thank you. Thanks for playing along with us. We've got to hear what Stacey has to say. It's impossible.
Thank you,
This is a noisy background. When I came in, things were kind of settled and they were going to just kind of chill on this room, but they got busy.
Is it too loud?
No.
Do we need to move?
No.
All right.
God, no, not at this
Use
point.
my old high school theater training to
We're good. Yeah,
enunciate. This will make me talk louder too. Cheers.
Cheers. Here, coffee. Cheers to you.
Surf and turf.
Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us about so many things. You were saying just now before Stacey came up to take our order here at North End Cafe, which we appreciate very much. We're talking about being entrepreneurial in the movie industry, especially in the smaller movie industry. Rust Creek is quite a venture because I want to think back to when I first heard about you, how many years ago, when Nice Guys Sleep Alone. How much did it cost to make that movie?
Nice Guys Sleep Alone was made for a little under $1 million. So
How much does Rust Creek cost to make?
I can't really disclose that publicly.
More?
but it was in the same ballpark. We'll say that much. So
Good to know.
but a much more ambitious film in a lot of respects if you compare the two. So the money got spent in very different ways for people who've seen both films. So Nice Guys has, in a lot of ways, it probably has all the outward appearances of having a larger cast and more locations, and we shot that movie on 35 millimeter film. So Rust Creek shot digitally, has a smaller cast, and by outward appearances probably has a lot fewer locations, but it's much more ambitious in terms of the stunts and the action sequences, special effects. So
And Sean O'Brien is in both.
he is in
pretty
both.
cool.
Yeah, we're definitely tied together in that respect. And that movie shot in the summer of '98, and Rust Creek shot in the fall of '16 and the winter of '17. So not quite 20 years apart, but pretty close.
And God, that winter was brutal. That was a brutal time. I'm sure that people who were working with you had California crew, right? As well as lots of Louisville people.
We had a lot of Louisville crew. Most of our department heads came from California or New York.
I'm sure they were ready to kill you. with the cold weather that we experienced that year?
Honestly, there was probably only one or two that. I mean, our director Jen McGowan grew up on the East Coast. And,
she's awesome,
and she is amazing. So she's tough as nails. Michelle Lawler, our DP, grew up in Massachusetts, so she was not afraid of it. Our production designer, Katie Gutierrez, is rock solid. So I think everyone, even though they live in California now, they're pretty tough. So
you had a lot of wool socks and hand warmers.
Yeah, and they have, all of them have enough production experience that it was a brutal winter, but certainly in terms of the psyche of the crew, I think they were all able to stick it out. I think where the weather made it challenging is just you anticipate it being cold, but it gets so cold that as the title of the movie implies, it involves some water.
Yes.
So what you don't anticipate is it getting so cold for so long that the water is frozen and therefore unshootable. And you obviously can't put your actors in water that is certainly frozen, but if it's not even, you get to a point where you just can't put your actors in conditions that are so hazardous that it would be endanger their health.
Absolutely,
So,
and they toughed it out. I mean, a lot of it was, what I'm interested in knowing is because of the fact that it was shot in Kentucky, and people are going to be doing what we normally do in locally shot productions. We're all going to go to the theaters. We're all going to go, oh my God, there's the old Sears building in St. Matthews. Oh my God, there's North End Cafe, whatever, all over the state. That has got to bring a lot of feeling of camaraderie and excitement to the viewers. And I would imagine that it would result in a lot more people talking about it. The buzz is going to be a lot bigger. What's the reach that Rust Creek will have in comparison to that movie so long ago, Nice Guys Sleep Alone, that didn't have the digital outlet? And I'm sure that's probably available now, digitally. Well,
the movie Rust Creek's available everywhere. It has been since January.
Right.
So the fact that we're now, what happened this past week is that we're now in our what's called electronic sell-through window, which means they not only put us out on the physical media, which is great because we're in all these Walmarts now, and which in 2019 is no mean trick for a small film to get pressed into a physical format, but they also have this two-tiered pricing format digitally. So we go from being a $6.99 rental on iTunes to
somebody's calling.
No, I feel like I'm hearing music playing in the background. I want to make sure that wasn't my phone.
And if it is, it's okay.
Okay.
Feel free to take a call. It might be your next big project.
No, not on a Saturday. But
T-tiered pricing.
Yes. So we're something like $12.99 or $14.99 on iTunes for the sell-through version, which means you own it, you never have to buy it again.
Right.
And that includes all the same special features, the deleted scenes, the behind the scenes.
Director's cut.
It's the same cut of the movie, but there's a bunch of interviews with the cast and crew. That's the same stuff that's on the Blu-ray, so you can buy it digitally or you can buy it physically. But also the rental price drops from what was $6.99 for the first 3 months of release down to $3.99. So you can, if you want to do a more temporal experience with the film, it's cheaper. But Nice Guys, for example, we'll get the rights back to that in about 3 months, and it's never been available in HD. So we've remastered that film. It'll actually come out again, hopefully sometime in the fall, which will be just under the wire of its 20th anniversary of its release, and we'll hopefully have some fun stuff cooked up for that.
I love that. That's fantastic. So let's just say hi to some of the folks who tuned in. Jerry Bloom, newsman from WHAS, Julie Gordon, Warren Nash, Trudy Johnson, Justin Spicer, Brenda Ford. Hey, good morning. Brenda Daniel Ellis is watching. James Green, Donna Schuster. Do you know Donna Schuster?
I believe Donna
Everyone knows
Schuster
Donna Schuster.
Is that Hannah's mom?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Hi, Donna.
That's how we know Donna now.
Yep.
Donna is no longer the successful, wonderful, nonprofit woman that she's always been. She's Hannah's mom.
Well, Hannah worked on the movie and is has collaborated with us on a few projects. So
she's amazing.
Yeah, so Donna got to see the movie on the big screen back in January, and I know is very proud of her daughter. And so anyway.
Yes, her mini-me. Nick Curcio, Susie Bright, Tammy Cox, thank you guys all for tuning in on this early Saturday morning. Take it from Tara. We're doing a bonus edition because we wanted to have this gentleman, Stu Pollard, who many of you know from movie making, but he's a local guy, and a lot of people of you know, as you know, you probably went to school with some of the people who are going to be watching. Where did you attend high school?
I went to Country Day.
Because you know in Louisville, when you went to school, it doesn't matter where you went to college, just where you went to high school.
Country Day class of 85, so we have our 35th reunion coming up next year.
Fun.
So 30th college reunion coming up next month for Georgetown University in DC.
Yep.
So.
And Georgetown was where you learned all about the business end of things.
I went to you've done your homework. I majored in business.
Well, I went to Georgetown Law, but I didn't stay.
Oh, well.
Yeah, love that area.
Yep.
Didn't want to live there.
Yeah, I love Georgetown. Get back whenever I can. Do a lot of volunteer work for the school. Anyway, it was a absolutely fabulous experience, and I'm in charge. I'm not sure they're thrilled about it, but my class is. I'm not sure the university is, but I'm in charge of all our reunions. So
awesome.
Our parties are great, and our videos are fabulous.
Well, that's because everybody reads your Facebook page, so you can be in charge of the reunion, because we all know the hardest part about the reunion is finding people.
We got a very well-connected class, and they're a great bunch of people, and very amazing group of people who've accomplished a lot of different things, and it's fun to be part of the team that brings them together every 5 years.
It is cool. Now, here's the sad side of that. How many people from your class have already passed away?
You know, the interesting thing about that, and that is one of the not so fun jobs, I was just working on that last week, is keeping up with the in memoriam poster.
Yep.
From a percentage standpoint, there's only about 78 people in my high school class. From a percentage standpoint, we've actually lost far more people from my high school class than we have from my college class. I think we've lost maybe, from a head count standpoint, I think we've lost 18 or thereabouts out of 1,500.
That's amazing.
I think we've lost 6 now out of 78.
Yeah.
So it's you know, if you look at it again from a percentage standpoint, it's staggering how many we've lost from our class of 85, including somebody. They're all dear, obviously, in a class that small. But we lost someone very tragically a couple of years ago, who was. And this next reunion will be tough because we'll really miss her. But she was my co-class chair. For 85, for Country Days class of 85. Or anybody from our class is watching knows who I'm talking about. Is O'Brien Worley, and she was amazing. And you get to be my age, which is in your 50s now, and when you lose somebody at 50, you just realize how young that is.
Absolutely.
But now if you lose somebody who's 60, you're like, that's young. When you're 20 and somebody passes away at 60. You're like, that's forever from now. But now you're just like, that's so. Anyway, so I'll not be having 11 Bloody Marys this morning. I'll cap it at 1. And this is this has got fruits and vegetables
Absolutely,
in it.
And it's fresh. So
this is salad for lunch here.
The fresh Rotten Tomatoes ranking. This is huge.
Certified fresh.
Can I have that for a second?
Yeah.
I just want to show it because it is such an awesome cover. And I know why people jumped at the opportunity to see this movie, because it just gives, women power is so important right now, especially in this industry. And the Me Too movement has changed things so drastically. Poor Joe Biden is going through a whole reckoning right now, and people may not like me to say poor, but it's a tough thing right now for men, particularly in the industry.
Yep.
So tell me how you are navigating that, and what you tell people who are on your cruise about handling situations that may come up, if that's something you even address.
Well, I think the way I like to think about it is, first off, as a company, we've always tried to be very forward-thinking in terms of diversity in hiring. So when you work with somebody like Jen McGowan, who she was way out in front of especially gender equality, but really all diversity in hiring. Jen was a big reason why I hired for Rust Creek. I hired Julie, our writer, and I hired Jen, our director. But it was Jen who really brought us to the next level in terms of making sure that our every single department head and every single person that we interviewed, or I should say position that we interviewed for, we cast a very wide net.
Absolutely.
And we ended up with a certainly the most diverse crew I've ever been a part of. More than half the department heads were female. We qualified for something called the Reframe Stamp, which is an organization that emerged out of Sundance a few years ago. That basically means we qualified as outstanding gender balanced filmmaking.
I love that.
In terms of how I addressed it, it's like I guess I just try to lead by example. And as far as I'm concerned, the more people that get called out on it and kicked out of the business, whether it's our business or Wall Street or politics, I like to think that I've been a decent person, if not a good person, for my entire career, and not just in the office, but in life.
Right.
And nice guys can get a bad rap in terms of getting cast aside or stepped on. But if that clears the path for not only for more women to get work in the business, but for other sort of underrepresented voices to get heard, but also for those of us that are just nice.
Yes.
Then I'm all for it. So
nice guys don't finish last in this case.
Well, people ask us, what is our company mandate, and part of our company mandate is no jerks.
Are you doing on coffee?
So
yes, I like that.
She takes direction very well.
She's amazing. She knows how to pick up the mic every time she speaks to us, which I absolutely love.
Let's like the menus out of your way.
Oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. So we're just talking about the diversity of casts, which is really, really important to understand because it takes
cast and crews,
and it takes all types of people to be able to create a film.
Yep.
So at the very beginning of the process, who is the go-to person for you? Who do you first talk to about an idea that you have or a concept that you have?
Well, I think it differs on every project, and again, I'll just talk about Rust Creek because that's the most recent project we have out there. But
certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
88% critical consensus, 88% positive.
I love it.
But in the case of Rust Creek, it is very loosely based on something that happened to me a million years ago.
Oh my God! Look at this meal. That's awesome. Beautiful. And could I bother you for a fork since I just knocked mine on the floor?
I will be right back.
Thank you so much. That's perfect. Go ahead.
But in that case, I pitched the idea to a young writer named Julie Lipson back in 2011. And I'd met Julie when she was a senior at Middlebury College a few years earlier. We were introduced by a gentleman named McLeod Andrews, who's a Louisville native. McLeod had shadowed me and been a production assistant on Keep Your Distance that shot here back in the early 2000s. So he had arranged for a screening of Keep Your Distance on Middlebury a few years after that movie had shot. That's how I met Julie. She had gone on to moved to LA and study screenwriting at USC. I was starting to teach there at that time. And so long story short is she was the first person I talked to, and it was this. I won't get into what happened to me. That story's on the Blu-ray, but basically I said I want to. If you want to write something, she didn't know what she was getting ready to do when she was graduating. I said I've always wanted to tell a story about this sort of rite of passage every young person goes through, where they shift from being invulnerable to very mortal, thinking they might take their last breath.
Yep.
And so she responded to that idea, and she had grown up in a part of Northern California that's actually very rural. You say Northern California, everyone immediately thinks Bay Area and super cool and cosmopolitan.
We're talking sequoias.
We're talking, inland.
Redwoods.
And So anyway, so she took the story and ran with it. She is where Sawyer came from and all the characters. I brought things like the road trip and Center College to the table. And
yeah, because you took a road trip like that and realized you were kind of out in the middle of nowhere by yourself and nobody knew it. And that's what the premise is of this amazing movie.
Exactly. So she was the first person, and then the next person that really got intimately involved with it was Harris McCabe, who went from being a student of mine to an intern of mine to the first person we hired when we started our new company. Wow. And he's our head of development now, so he really took a shine to the script. And then he and Julie worked on it for a while, and then in the summer of 16 is when we brought Jen McGowan on board, and Jen really was over the moon about the script and had a incredible vision and enthusiasm for it, and that's when the train officially had an engineer, as it were, and we were off and running at that point.
So when you come home to Louisville, does it give you a little bit of time to shut down, or do you continue to just go?
Well, I'd say one of the things I love the most about Louisville is that it does, and I say this with an immense amount of reverence. I don't think unless I'm like running late to be at a meeting, and I don't like to be late, doesn't mean that I'm not on occasion, but I don't think I've ever complained about traffic here. And so the pace of things here, I'm not trying to portray it as slow, but it isn't as frantic.
It's compared to Southern California, it's very slow.
Yeah,
that's why we live here.
Yeah, so it's people are friendlier. There's a lot of things I love about LA, but yeah, you can breathe a little bit easier here, both in terms of the actual oxygen in the atmosphere and just in terms of the pace of life. I think one of the things I probably love the most about Louisville is just that it's a lot easier to make an impact here in terms of the community. So I'm involved in a lot more charitable organizations here. It's not like I don't do any of that in LA, but it's really big. It's obviously it's
you want to give support to your hometown.
It's so there's a lot of organizations here that I not only try to contribute to in terms of chipping in financially to, but I also dedicate time to, and I also think just because I've been able to make a couple of films here and there's not as much production going on here, that I'm looked at as a little bit more of a thought leader here, and so it's which is nice, because there's a lot of people doing that out in California, and it's not like I don't have opportunities to do that, but they're fewer and far between just because there's so many more people doing it.
I'm dying to hear your reaction to this, because this is one of the favorite dishes that my friends order when we come up here.
I can already tell you it's going to be fantastic, just because I've had it a million times before. So
we wish you were here to join us, because truly, having breakfast at the North End and getting to talk to Stu Pollard, two things that I have been looking forward to for at least the last couple of weeks since we started to coordinate schedules. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that as a local person who is busy, even when you come home, as you've just admitted, that you take a few minutes to sit down and just talk. And you do interviews all the time. I've seen so many interviews online where you've got people who have never done an interview before to some of the top-rated interviewers in the country. You and I ran into each other at Great Day Live one day when Terry and Rachel, or Terry and Angie, I'm not sure what it was, but
Terry and Angie,
interviewed you about what was going on. Was the Oscar watch party, and I was doing something with a nonprofit, and I knew at that moment that I really wanted to talk to you, because you are changing the way the city of Louisville, particularly, and the state of Kentucky is operating. And right now we're in a huge budget deficit. So with your financial acumen and with the knowledge you have about figures. I mean, just a few seconds ago, you started talking about calculations, and it was quite impressive because I know you're doing them in your head, and that's not my specialty. And by the way, good morning to Chris Hartman from Fairness, and Ellen Elizabeth Jones is watching too. How you guys doing? How would you solve a budget crisis in a city the size of Louisville when about 50% or 60% of that budget has to do with public safety and emergency services?
Well,
what are the other areas that you can think of that could go? Because we're being asked as citizens to input. Here's your chance.
I'll preface this by saying that there's a quote in my high school yearbook from an old Clint Eastwood movie that says, "A man's got to know his limitations." So, and there's another quote I love from a Lyle Lovett song that I believe says, "The only thing I know for sure is what I don't know."
Yeah, that's true.
So, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not. So this is stepping outside my area of expertise. But when it comes to economics and budgets, the generally the simplest way to make things tilt more in your favor is either to spend less or make more. So, not being familiar with every single line item on this budget we're talking about.
No one is really, except the people who wrote it.
I think you've got to. The first thing you do is try to figure out where too much spending is taking place, and figure out how you can spend more efficiently there. And then the second place is, where are opportunities to generate more revenue where it's not going to hurt. And one of the things that came up in my classes that I was teaching earlier this week is, and there was an article in the New York Times about this a couple of days ago, is this notion of congestion pricing. That they think they're going to, and apparently this has gone on in places like Chile for years, and according to one of my students who's from Chile, he says it's nothing. Now that's fabulous. The article in the New York Times was sort of saying other cities like Philadelphia and Los Angeles are going to start looking at New York, which is going to implement this congestion tax, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's basically, if you're going to get out on the road during peak traffic times in your car and drive alone, they're going to figure out a way similar to crossing a bridge to hit you with a toll.
Right.
My student from Chile said that it's nothing because it's like hitting you with a 5-cent toll or whatever. But if you figure there's a zillion cars on the road at rush hour, and you choose to get in your car to run an errand at rush hour, you're going to get hit with that 5-cent toll. So there's a lot of controversy about it, that it penalizes certain people who may not live near mass transit.
That's a fabulous idea. I have to say, because, even though our traffic is not comparable to what you deal with in Southern California, our pollution is very comparable. We live in this bowl, of the Ohio Valley, and allergies are terrible and pollution is terrible, and we have been restricted in so many different ways, by the government, with the kinds of industry that we have, and the pollution that has had to be dealt with in Rubbertown and other places, and doing something like that, because we don't have a light rail. We have a bus system, and the bus system is working very hard to keep up with the demands of the outreaches of the city, because it used to be that being outside the Watterson was being way out, and now we're in 7 different counties, literally the population. So I like that plan. I think that the congestion tax is a great idea.
Well, I don't know whether it'll work or not. I just know that that's something that's coming. And obviously in the bigger cities, I know we have Uber and Lyft here, but in the bigger cities where you have this massive proliferation of those rideshare services, it's put an enormous number of cars on the road.
Yep.
But something I'm seeing in LA was a place when I moved out there 20-something years ago. You could not move out there without a car.
Right.
And now I'm seeing this is another thing about getting older. There's a whole generation of people who are debunking that rule, which is you now can consider moving out to LA, and because of Uber and Lyft, you don't necessarily need a car, because you can run the numbers and say, okay, how many times do I actually need to commute by car? There's better mass transit than there was. It's still not comparable with a city like New York, but it's better.
Right.
And when you eliminate things like car insurance, how many times I have to park my car, how much gas I've got to pay for, which is not getting cheaper, parking tickets, valet, you add all that up, car repairs, you add all that up in the course of a year, and then run, column B as how much I'm going to spend on Uber and Lyft or carpools, it actually becomes, a pretty even trade-off.
Can we get you to come to the Metro Council meeting at the end of the month and share all this? It sounds like a great plan.
Well,
how do you feel about legalizing pot?
I just had a conversation about that with somebody this morning, and if you look at how much, I'm very unstudied on this, but if you look at how much business over the years that the tobacco business has generated for our state, and you would think, I've always joked that the one of our largest unofficial exports is probably marijuana. That's sheer conjecture on my part.
Well, it's doing great things in Oregon, medical and recreational.
But you'd like to think between the infrastructure in growing tobacco that there'd probably be a pretty easy translation to the cannabis industry. It's getting legalized in a lot of other places. Now, I'm not studied up enough on it to know that it doesn't, in terms of the how law enforcement would have to deal with managing it, and I'm sure there's some costs involved with that.
Sure.
And some best practices that could be learned from Colorado and California and Oregon.
Yep.
But the short answer is it seems like that wave is coming, and similar to why aren't there slots in Churchill Downs when there's a casino across the river, and you can look at all the license plates that are in the riverboat casinos in Indiana, and a good number of those are from Kentucky. That seems like revenue we could be capturing.
Throwing our money away.
It would seem like there's, you go back to what I said about how you balance the budget. Well, what are other ways to make more money? It seemed like, figuring out a way to let the racetracks capture some more revenue, which could of course be taxed, and maybe figuring out a way to jump on the cannabis train in a way that's responsible. And there's certainly enough states that are doing it where I think you could probably learn from any mistakes or growing pains they've had, so you could do it in a constructive, responsible way.
Well, and I can tell you that the CBD oil has made a huge difference in the life of my big dog, who's been having severe arthritis.
What kind of dog do you have?
He's a Lab Dane, and then the second one is a
Lab Dane?
A Lab Dane.
Sounds like a big dog.
That's Brady. He's 90 pounds. And Wyatt Gunther Obama is a little Shepherd Husky mix, and Gracie Lou Freebush is a Beagle Jack Russell.
Do all your dogs have 3 names?
Brady Raymond has 2 names. Gracie Lou Freebush has 3. Wyatt Gunther Obama has 3. Yeah. I could give Brady another name if I needed to.
I see.
But he stands on his own because his names are Bo Brady and my father Raymond. Brady Raymond. They all have their own songs. They all have their own voices. We have a Puppy Adventures podcast, which you'll have to listen to. It's a lot of fun.
I will.
But the CBD oil not only has helped them, but I suffered a major depressive episode about 5 years ago, and with it came tremendous anxiety. And I have gone through the recovery from the depression, but the anxiety was just hanging on like just this absolutely vicious little thing that wouldn't go away. And last fall, in an attempt to hit that last tiny component, you can eat while I talk. I'm trying to talk and give you a chance to chow down a little bit.
I'm actually on a diet, so this is an aggressive meal for me.
So I started using the CBD oil, and the anxiety is gone.
Congratulations.
It's amazing stuff. And my neighbor sells for one of the bigger distributors of CBD in Kentucky. It's called Commonwealth, and he is convinced, and he takes that out in his sales, that it is the thing that is going to make the difference between people being on pharmaceuticals or using something that is natural for the rest of their lives. And I know it's enabled me to reduce a lot of the other medications that I was being given. So, CBD, and I have never smoked pot. I just didn't.
Never.
I drank, but I didn't smoke pot, and I just think it's.
I don't drink either.
Lift that Virgin Mary.
I'm in the business of make believe. So.
But you know what?
Now I've heard a lot of good things about it. I personally have not tried that, but I've had a few people close to me recently who have dealt with anxiety issues and also severe pain.
Right.
And they've had a lot of people have come out. I don't want to say out of the woodwork, but a lot of people have stepped up who I would not have identified as, I'll just say obvious sources, who not people I would have guessed would have recommended CBD as a panacea of choice. So
it's helping with a lot of different things, and I love that. So that's the suggestion, Mayor Fisher. I decided to ask Stu what his ideas were, and that business degree from Georgetown is coming in handy this morning. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to come and present this video to Metro Council.
Oh boy.
Just that segment. So Stu Pollard, of course, we all know, producer, director, Louisville guy, taking us to a new level in movie making, and especially bringing a tremendous amount of business to Louisville and to the state. You really have invested a lot of effort in utilizing locals, and we all know, obviously, that when a movie goes to a place, they have to hire a tremendous team of local talent, crew especially. And we have outstanding crew in Louisville, and I've worked as a PA, so I know all of the people, really, and I'm just so proud of the fact that you're injecting that money into the economy. How much would you think, impact-wise, making a movie like Rust Creek brings to the state?
It's hard for me to put a number on it in terms of the actual dollars. I think you have to. The film office is probably a better judge of literally estimating those types of things. But I go back to the fact that it's everything from the. You look at, like, for example, the people that invest in the film who have children or friends who are interested in the business, and the access that they get in terms of learning opportunities.
Right.
There's young people who want to.
Hannah Schuster.
There's people like Hannah who, and Hannah first worked on something for me in 2010 when she lived here. She's since gone on to New York and has a great career there. But there's the opportunities we create for young people to apprentice. So it's one thing to say, like, there's a guy named Bobby Spalding who's worked on a lot.
Know him well.
Yeah, a lot of projects for us over the years, and he's really a legend in terms of somebody who, if you can get him on your crew here, he's the best there is. Yep. But Bobby's really great at when somebody wants to learn more about being on a crew. And Maddie Ware is another great example of somebody who's really established himself as a go-to guy, as a gaffer in town. But Maddie's younger brother Seth worked on this and was just learning to cut his teeth. And it's 2.5 years removed since we shot this film, and now Seth's a very experienced guy. So being able to say that we have a deeper crew base because of the experience we're able to give people here is something I don't know that you can necessarily measure in dollars and cents. But even, we're having this meet and greet tomorrow night at Bourbon's Bistro. Daniel Hill's in town for that, and being able to partner with a guy like Jason Bronner in New Riff Distilling, which is in Newport, and the Wine Rack, which is John Johnson's wine shop right up the street here, both bourbons and
buddies.
and John are right up the street here on Frankfort. That's an example of it just doesn't stop with the making of the film. It's also promoting the film, and our Blu-rays in every Walmart in the country, and we're going to stop by as many of the Walmarts as we can here in Louisville to make sure all the staff knows that this movie was made in Kentucky.
And it even has the little thing on it that says "Filmed in Kentucky," thank you, Stacy.
That's
awesome.
your copy. We just made those stickers ourselves, so
love that.
We're going to be stickering as many of them as we can.
I just love it. That is so much fun. Okay, so we've talked about everything else, and we've mentioned the movie, but give us the quick 411 on what. I'm going to put some syrup in my coffee just for fun. It's probably better for me than regular sugar.
I'm not going to put any in my Bloody Mary.
You sure?
Yeah.
Give us a little 411 on the movie, because I want people who don't know about Rust Creek, and feel free to take bites in between. Tell me the storyline.
Well, sure. Well, in its simplest form, Rust Creek's what's called a survival thriller. So it is about a young lady, Sawyer Scott, who is a senior at Center College, and we really did film at Center College. And she's got this amazing job.
And Ellen Elizabeth Jones went to Center College. She's on here right now, which is pretty cool.
And she's got a great job interview lined up in D.C., and she heads off on a road trip to do that, wants to squeeze the interview in right before Thanksgiving, and so she heads off on a road trip out on 64, and to avoid traffic that's starting to get backed up, she decides to listen to her GPS and take some back roads, quickly gets off course, and then after that runs into a few people who have less than noble intentions. There's a misunderstanding and a struggle, and the rest of the movie is her fighting for her life. Somewhere near Fording County, Kentucky, which is a fictitious county, somewhere east of Danville. That's all we know. We don't really know where she is. She's just out in the woods. So it's a survival thriller. It's been called a sort of a feminist take on Deliverance or Breaking Bad.
I was just going to say, strains of a banjo are going through my head.
It's not quite that. One of the things I think Jen and our cast did really well is it doesn't really play to stereotypes. It might at first blush, but every single one of these. We had a really wonderful review in Vulture, and who basically said when any character meets their demise in this film, and we're rated R, there's some violence in the movie. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad. You feel for them, and it's because there's a deep streak of humanism in this film for every single character. And Daniel Hill, who's a Louisville native, plays one of the guys that's not so great in the movie. You can watch the trailer and figure that out.
Absolutely.
But you end up in a twisted way caring about him over the course of the film. And again, that's a strong tribute to our script and also to the performances and to Jen most of all.
Yes.
For the story they were able to put together. So it's a thriller, but I think part of the reason that the critics have responded to it and the public as well, and I hope one of the reasons it has a nice long life, is that it's not a paint by numbers kind of B-movie title. It's a film with a lot of heart and something that I think merits more than one watch. I'm not just saying that because I produced it. There's a lot of nuance to it, and Jay Paulson, who really carries the back half of the film along with Hermione, gives a wonderful performance, and while the film is characterized as sort of a feminist film in a lot of ways, and that's not inaccurate, it also is very much a film about trust and having to be very careful about who you forge alliances with, and then ultimately, making very, very difficult choices. In some cases, having to choose, what's the old saying? The right thing to do and the easy thing to do are rarely the same.
Right.
And in some cases, that may mean going against,
the hard right instead of the easy wrong too.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes that may mean having to trust a stranger versus your own family.
Yeah.
And because the stranger may be the person who's who's worth saving.
Isn't that interesting? Thanks for Brian Crowder tuning in, Tina Mull, David and Janet Hedrick, Linda Herrick Hillenbrand is watching. Yay, Linda. Hope the puppies are doing well this morning. You know, what's fun about doing Facebook live casting, Stu, and I'm sure you've been doing it with other people too.
This is actually, I believe, my first experience.
Well, yay, this is good.
Yes.
So I coined the term live cast because I've been in the news for 35 years doing various and sundry things, talk shows and meteorology and banking and business and everything. But I love interviewing people, and I love to hear things that I don't know about, because I figure if I have to learn something, then everybody else gets to as well. And to do a Facebook live cast immortalizes you because, number one, it's always there. Number two, it's shared widely, and a lot of people will, watch it repeatedly, and so your views build up, and then you all of a sudden then you put it on your page, and the friends who are sitting here waving at me across the restaurant are opening their phones and going, "Oh, Tara's live casting. This is cool. Maybe I'm going to be in the shot." And so it's got a life of its own. And social media has developed into, in many ways, the medium of choice for a lot of people promoting things and everything else. So what I want to know is how much influence has social media had on you as a filmmaker, and what role it plays in the production of all of these promotional opportunities, because you're able to see this movie in just about every capacity.
It is probably if I was on the editorial board of Merriam-Webster, I would put social media, a picture of social media, underneath the definition of necessary evil.
Yeah.
When it comes to filmmaking, it is such an integral part of so much of what we do in terms of getting the word out about things, and as a 50-something, it is. I didn't grow up with it, obviously. So
and neither did I.
So the fluency that the youngsters have with it, it's like iPhones, having grown up with it. It's a great way to connect with younger audiences. It's a great, when I teach, I tell the teens and 20-somethings that it's a great, if they have fluency with it, it's a great way to break into the business.
Right.
Because so many people that are in my demographic, age-wise, need guidance and help from people who have a better grasp of it. So, because if you just look at it like my universe, as it were, it's like I have my personal stuff, I have the Rust Creek world, I have a production company to run. So if you just dissect that from a Twitter, Instagram, Facebook perspective, and then LinkedIn for me personally, and for the company, that's 12 or thereabout accounts to keep up right then and there. So it is, and you could say, oh, they're all free. It's cheaper than having
not time-wise.
That's just it, right?
Right.
So,
it's a big investment.
And you tack on things like YouTube, and then there's always a new one poking its head up, like Alignable or
Flickr and Tumblr and God knows what else.
So we have an internship that we have every summer, and almost invariably one of the interns helps out with social media.
Yes.
We got very lucky when we released Rust Creek. We had a gentleman who had a lot of experience come on board and help us for about 3 months, kind of running our social media.
That's fantastic.
And he trained a couple of the people we have working for us right now, kind of led by example. So we're experimenting a little bit now with boosting posts and ads and things like that. Because Facebook in particular, while it's gotten a little beaten down of late with the privacy issues,
right.
I mean,
it's still where it's at.
Well, but it also, like, all that is sort of proof as to why it's so powerful, right? Because they've got so much info on all of us, so it is exceptionally powerful targeting medium.
Were you using Facebook? See, I was getting ready to do a live cast with the Humane Society of the United States, and we had just unveiled this investigation into Dow agrochemicals because they were testing pesticides on beagles. And there are 60,000 animals in the United States who are in these testing labs. This particular group was 36 or 39, I'm trying to remember which, beagles, who are literally raised and sold by breeders to these testing labs because of their disposition, and they were having pesticides forced into them. And it was going on and on and on. And Humane Society of the United States sent in an undercover reporter with a video, and he captured all of this, which was horrifying. And by virtue of Facebook's power and the power of other social media, they put out a petition to be signed by tens of thousands of people. And with the force of all of that and this investigation and the video, Dow Agrochemical released these beagles, and they were supposed to be in there for the next several months. It was supposed to go till June. And the ones who hadn't already died are being released to the HSUS to find homes. So to me, that's the power. But the day we were doing that interview was the day it was Facebook down.
Right.
And all of us were trying to get the signal. We were trying to get everything up on our phones, and I said, you guys, I think the world is ending. I think we've either been hit with an electronic bomb of some sort that has knocked out our entire infrastructure of electronics, or something horrible has happened. And Instagram was down. So then you start thinking, oh my God, this is really bad. And of course we find out that, they got hit. By the way, hi Tom Sturgeon, hi Selena, hi Terry Chambers, good to see you guys. Glad you joined us this morning. You're a little late, we've already finished breakfast, but that's okay. I remember that being a huge impact on me for what I do, and being amazed that the stations, the news broadcast stations, were not picking it up. There was very little mention. Internet news sources were picking it up. National news was picking it up, but it wasn't a big deal, and I kept thinking, oh my God, how can people not realize the impact this is having? And then all of a sudden, they figured it out, just in time for everything to go back online.
Right.
So I think that's a really perfect example of the impact of social media, that, all of our lives just kind of stopped for a second. Not just for the people who browse, not just for the people who go through the pages and click and tell you what you're eating today and congratulate people on their jobs and all that stuff, but for people who do what I do, which is a lot of social advocacy.
Right.
That was devastating. And then we all turned to Twitter, which was really funny, because Facebook and Instagram were tweeting to tell the world what was happening.
Yeah, it's not working. Yeah. Interesting. Well, like I said, for I think for any independent artist, whether they're a filmmaker or not, being able to connect with an audience and build up a following is just immensely important. And social media is in a lot of ways leveled the playing field. Right. Like when we were, you go back 20 years, trying to get the word out about something like Nice Guys Sleep Alone. If you were we opened that movie, I think, in 6 or 7 theatrical markets ourselves, and it was like you were opening in Buffalo, New York. It's like you had to run an ad in the paper or the Arts Weekly and try to get booked on the radio up there, and that was it.
Yep.
And now it's like, you can target a Facebook ad to reach film lovers and romantic comedy lovers and just in Buffalo. Or you can run an event, advertise an event that's going to be about that theater or in that zip code. It's powerful stuff. And like I said, I'll revert back to what I said about politics. It's important to acknowledge it is incredibly time consuming, and you have to acknowledge that it's not just like, I know how to post something, so therefore I know how to do Facebook. It's really,
you have to become an influencer.
It's not just about the influencing part of it. That obviously is a huge part of the reach, but there's so much under the hood that in terms of the analytics and the power. So having somebody who manages that for you, and then the engagement, right, is huge, because if you do get people liking things, having somebody, my fiance helps me with this. It's like when somebody chimes in and is like, great movie, she's on there making sure that they get responded to, or they're invited to like the page or things like that. So we're trying to cultivate that fan base. So when we do post about being certified fresh or being available in a new format, that the people who are most likely to sort of evangelize the title are getting out and doing that, because in theory that's that's somebody who will go out and hopefully champion our next film.
And 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I did movie junkets where we all were taken to a place in either New York or LA, stayed at top-rated hotels, got fed like kings and queens,
Right.
screened the movie, and then had one-on-ones with all the stars. And that was the most incredible thing. But then we would bring those 2 pieces of tape back with us, and they were literally tape, and we would put them together in a literal news package, and we would air them on the morning shows, not necessarily the newscasts, because there was still separation there. Sales and news were not inextricably intertwined.
Right.
But that's how much effort you had to go through, and there was no place else to promote it besides print and television. That's how you found out about movies.
Yep.
So the world has changed drastically. Marilyn McClendon of My Dog Eats First, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the great service that you give to the companion animals of the homeless in Louisville. And I hope the big walk was a huge success. I only got to be part of the walk with Compassion for the Homeless. I was there at the beginning and heard the speeches and saw the kickoff. And there were hundreds of people, and that gives me great hope because we are a compassionate city, and we want to stay compassionate. Go ahead and promote yourself for a second here,
right.
And I'm going to hop up and I'm going to focus on you because I don't have a photographer other than myself.
Oh, all right.
Talk about your movie, Stu.
All right. Well, tomorrow night here, if you're watching in Louisville at Bourbon's Bistro at 5 o'clock from 5 to 6. Happy hour pricing. Daniel Hill and I will be there. Daniel R. Hill and I will be there. Signing and selling these and posters and other fun stuff. And Bourbon's has got one of the best bourbon collections in town and some fabulous food if you've never tried it. Right up here on Frankfort Avenue. So can't recommend that enough. Go to bourbonsbistro.com for more information about that. And if you want to check out our Blu-ray, it's available in every Walmart in the country. Also available on Amazon.com, Walmart.com. You can watch our trailer at RustCreek.com. And you can follow us at Rust Creek or at Lunacy Prods. And you can follow me at Stu Pollard.
Thank you, Stu Pollard. Wonderful. Appreciate you being here. And thanks, North End Cafe.